She is on fire to be in a relationship with you.
I'm gonna tell you about a woman whose heart is sunshine, whose body burned hot. I'm gonna tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she moves that you...
Welcome to the C Note Show, guys, brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains. It's 11:02 here on Friday, June 12th, 2020, and you are here because you want to understand what are the three forms of confidence so I can be a rock star in my relationship, so I can be a hero in my own story and the man of her dreams at the same time. I can feel like I'm on a mission in the world and I know what I'm doing and I know my purpose when I get up every day, and she is on fire to be in a relationship with you. That's why you're here. Here we do our daily work. That's what we say. The men here, the men that join us every single day are phenomenal and dedicated to here we do our daily work. With my amazing co-host, my talented, beautiful, and feminine co-host, the only woman who's allowed on the C Note Show is Miss Cynthia Cruz. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, good morning. What you just said was, I am honored always to be here, and you even saying that, please know how much of a privilege this is to sit in with this tribe of men, and my gratitude just grows every day. So thank you for having me, and thank you for being who you are.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I appreciate it. So our theme of today and this week is how to reinvent yourself. And we are going to have a guest on our show today. As soon as he jumps on, it's Brandon from the forums. And Cynthia, if you'd watch out for him, I'm not sure when he's going to pop in. I don't see him just yet. So he's fashionably late already, and we'll get our show started. And if not, I have more than enough material. I've got a funny clip from what I found yesterday. It's an English comedy, Hail and Pace. Super funny, honestly, super great. So I have a clip about how to have a bar fight during social distancing. Got that coming up here in a second. I've got a video from about the three forms of love today, and I have more on Stoicism from like stories of old, more on our Stoic philosophy that we started to speak about yesterday. So let me get into our question of the day today, which is from Brandon. How to reinvent yourself is our theme of today. Life doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. Three forms of confidence is how we ground ourselves in how and why and what to do. And here's Brandon's post to start us off. Sincerely thankful that I have men in my life to call me out on my crap. Last week, Sven was the gentleman he is and called me out on my crap on some of my Facebook posts on my personal page. And today, a fellow brother, James, called me out on my taking off my ring and challenged me to put my ring back on and rethink how I show up. I shared this because it's a blessing to have fellow brothers point out some blind spots and call you up. Thanks, men. So questions within there are, should he take his ring off or should he put his ring back on, right? And the crap that the guys in the forums have called him out on was some disparaging remarks and some negativity that was, not just him sharing his pain, okay, not just him sharing with the other men of the spot that he's in or asking for support. This was, more inflammatory. And the guys called him out on that. It's like, hey, we know that you're better than that. That's not the man that you want to be. You've told us that's not the man you want to be. So, hey, brother, just calling you out on your shit. And this is him saying thank you. And so underneath that, Cynthia, is one thing that I want to bring up today is going to be, should I put my ring back on or should I take my ring off? Right? That's an underlying question that I had to ask myself. And I think most likely every single man on here had to ask themselves as well. So let's start. We always start with something funny here, and then we dive into the shit and bounce back out with a perspective and a plan and how to grow the three forms of confidence and the tools that we're going to show today. I've got a quote from No More Mr. Nice Guy. Like I said, I have 2 other videos lined up with some awesome stuff. So let's start with this clip of how to have a bar fight during social distancing.
You looking at me? I said, are you looking at me? Yeah, you!
Hang on. Are you looking at me?
Do you want some or what?
Come over here and say that.
Nah, you come over here and say that.
Come over here and say what?
Come over here and say, come over here and say that.
Nah, I won't.
Oi!
gonna do about it?
Oh, yeah? Want some?
I'm gonna have you for that.
You come over here and say that.
Can't make me. You bastard!
Now you're for it.
All right, that's enough.
You stay out of it.
Yeah, mind your own business.
Right, you'll pay for that damage.
You can't make me.
You think you're on?
That's it. Out.
Oh, 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 oh. You're breaking my arm, you nutter!
And stay out. Bloody hooligans.
Oh, I love the spilling that he like spilled his own beer. Oi, oi, he spilled my drink. Oh my gosh. So good. So Andy really liked that one. I've been trying to find some more comedy based in Europe in some capacity. And I just think we have different, senses of humor. I don't know. Andy, jump in for a second. You seem to really enjoy that. What else do I need to find? And there's some, what other English comedy or, European based comedy should I be looking up?
You'll have to do some Monty Python, won't you?
Of course.
There's loads. I'll have a think about it and I'll let you know. But those in pubs, you grew up in pubs with hearing that, oi, you spilled my drink. They're just classic lines. And, oi, you looking at me? We can be so aggressive in pubs in England. And I love the way they turn that into humor. It's brilliant.
So cool. Thank you so much. I love it. Thanks, Andy. Awesome. Yeah, my face actually hurts from laughing for 2 minutes straight there a second ago. So good. Well, here we go. We're going to jump back into the shit today, right? We start with some laughs and then we dive back into the shit. We've got the question of, should I wear my ring? Yeah, Kent is here. Kent said, oh, you're going to pay for that. Yeah, we have our gentlemen here, our regulars, as well as other men who come in. Good to see Harry, Hussein, John's here, Kent's here, Randy and Patrick and Pat. Phenomenal. Brett's here as well. And of course, Andy. Good to see you guys. So cool. So Cynthia, I'm going to ask about this question here in a moment of whether we should be wearing a ring or not and what expectations are around that. And one segue into that is this video from the School of Life that talks about the 3 different types of love, right? And I will read these and I'll blow these up in a moment. But there's multiple different types of love in the Greek definition. And the 3 I want to highlight today are eros or eros, philia, and agape, okay? And so if I'm thinking about, if I'm a man and she's taken off her ring, okay, or she said that she wants space to the point where she basically wants separation, like no contact whatsoever, and she's taken off her rings, okay, and I as a man have to think about, what are my values? How do I want to lead during this chapter of my life? Even though I'm shocked and horrified, which I went through in 2015, guys. Even though I'm shocked and horrified that this is happening and it feels like a violation of the relationship, it feels like a violation of the integrity and monogamy between us and the bond that we have. It's, feels like it's just like ripping apart the relationship that we have together for her taking off her ring. And I, as a man, have to think about what I want to do. And I'd really like to understand where she's coming from. Okay, so every man on here and me and myself and every man watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube or in our forums, our private forums, he wants as much information as he can, right? Every man is like, why? Why did she take off her ring? What's her intention here? How can I understand what I should do? And of course, guys, we know that there's us, there's her, and there's the relationship, right? So we need to decide how we want to show up. But Cynthia, what I want to ask you is, what can the man understand that she's going through potentially when she takes her rings off? What would you say to that?
I think it goes back to, again, this concept that if a woman has, her energy is like more wonderfully watery. And I would say, even as a woman who does her own work, it is really hard in my most watery state to not want to flow where your riverbanks are flowing. And the riverbanks that are set up could be the like we are married, even if, there's separation in the relationship. And so she will do things to, symbolize to herself, to try to create an energetic boundary for herself and a stability in herself. When a woman is taking off her rings, there's she's trying to be in control of her own world. And I say that not to be in a add salt to the wound, but say that because she is so watery and things can shift and change, if there's an energetic shift in her solidity and the solidity in your relationship, that ring, as easy as it is to take off, the symbol of that, it's as easy it is to put back on in the symbol of that. So I think there is a gift there in how energy can shift and be back in a path or on a different path that you really would prefer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think a huge learning for every man that I had to go through, and every man here and every man that I do one-on-one coaching with has to learn, is that watery energy that the woman has, in that, and how society affects the expectations around wearing a ring, or the pressures that she's getting out in the world as well. There's plenty of places where we can find examples of, you should leave him, blah, blah, be single, be on your own, right? Where those examples and social media and everything we can find online, it wasn't as, let's say, easy. It wasn't as easy to find other people to support separation, taking off your rings, divorce 50 years ago, right? No fault divorce actually didn't exist prior to the 1980s. And Ronald Reagan helped to bring in no fault divorce. Prior to that, there wasn't such a thing. So that's a philosophical question for another time, of the social mores of our culture right now. We'll pause on that. I want to say hey to Brandon, who has come in. Brandon, can you unmute yourself? I want to catch you up real fast. I read the post that you put on the forum, and I'd love for you to share some of your story today. And Brandon, I think you unmuted yourself. I just want to catch you up. I shared this one about men calling you out on your shit, right? And then I highlighted that you're questioning whether to put your ring back on or not. And so that's kind of this big question. Yeah. Hey, man, good to see you. Say hi to the guys.
Hey, guys. How's it going? It's good to see you too, Jeff.
Yeah, you too, man. Really it's good to put a voice to your face, to your Facebook posts. You know what I'm saying? I've been around, and you're on the other groups as well, the Good Guys to Great Men, and you're on Great Men Move Mountains, right? And I've seen you with Steve Horseman and around the guys over there, and I've seen you on our group as well. So we're a tribe here, man. We're all a tribe. Most of us are on multiple groups as well, right? And have been for quite a while. So good to see you, Brandon. So yeah, tell us about, if you don't mind me jumping right in, about your decision to take your ring off and or to put it back on. What are your thoughts there?
Okay. So yeah, it's really great to thank you very much for letting me share my story. And I really hope that through some experiences that I've been through, maybe it'll help somebody. And then I just enjoy learning from you guys as well. So my wife and I, we initially separated a year ago, actually February of 2019. And so about in March, she took her ring off, and she's had her ring off ever since. We started dating. We were separated, living in the same house, co-parenting for about 7 months. No intimacy, pretty much just roommates at that point in time. We started dating again September of 2019, and it's been quite a journey of I'm learning probably more about myself and my part in it than in focusing on that, at least trying to stay in that point, in that mindset. So things have been, we're working through a lot. And so I took my ring off initially. We had some up and downs. We've been married for 16 years.
Sure.
And so there's, of course, it's a up and downs. I took my ring off, I think, because, and I like to be transparent and be open about everything. So
Yeah, go for it.
I took my ring off, and what I've discovered now is I was probably an expectation that we weren't moving fast enough, or so it was really jump back on. I like what Cynthia said. It really made sense about the control. But I feel like I was probably trying to jump back in that control again, and jumping back into that old mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where are you right now today with that mindset?
So some good brothers I'm very thankful for. That's a really great tool. He brought it up to me that he said that's basically not very, he didn't feel that was being very masculine. It was actually kind of being boyish, he kind of felt. Because and so he called me out. We've nurtured a bond together and a friendship where we feel comfortable challenging each other and calling each other up. And he just really challenged me on why I took it off, what was my motivation behind it. And so at first I was going to really defend myself and make it all about me, make it all about myself. And when I started thinking about it, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's not the type of way that I want to show up to relationship. And so I made the choice today, and I've been wearing it for about 2 days now. And the way that I feel today about it is I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for her. There was years that I didn't wear a wedding ring, Jeff. And when I start looking back on things that I'm really finding how selfish I really am, that I'll do these things and then turn around, but it's not okay for her to do them. And I'm just going to be 100% honest with you on that.
Go for it. Yeah.
So there was years that I didn't wear a wedding ring, and it was more of a fact of where it got in the way, but it really, her and I have talked since. It really made her feel dishonored in some ways. So now I like what Cynthia was saying was so good. It's her wanting to take back that control and that security for herself. And I'm totally comfortable with that. And today I'm totally comfortable. I wear it for me, what I feel is right for me. And I am secure enough, and I'm telling myself that whatever time it takes for her to put that back on, whatever trust I have to earn, if it is, maybe, there's always a chance that it doesn't. But I'm okay with giving her that space. And I want to stay. That's the mindset I'm really trying to stay in.
Awesome. Brandon, I want to point a couple of things out, and then I have a question, and then I'd love for you to maybe ask Cynthia a question if you like, because we've got a professional woman, a woman here who's a coach for men, right? It's like an unusual thing. You and I can chat all the time, but we got Cynthia here on the show. So what I heard was there's you, there's her, and there's the relationship, the three different entities, right? And you were looking at yourself in the past in maybe a selfish way when you took it off, is what you were saying?
Yes.
And then what's funny is you said, well, I'm putting it on again for myself and because of how I want to show up in the relationship. And Brandon, I know that you're a spiritual guy, and something I've started to talk about this week on the show is that there's a spiritual undercurrent of our life. However you look at that, if you look at that as nature or, energy in your life, or if you believe in a particular religion or meditation or the power within yourself, right? So there's this undercurrent that's timeless. And then there's the egoic existence of our human life and our experience in the world. And this, of course, Western culture of materialism and needs in the moment. And those are two energies that we have to manage all the time. And I didn't even think of it that way in the past. I thought it was sort of one or the other. Like you live like this. Okay, how do I manage myself? Or, okay, I'm this Buddhist spiritual, I have no desires in the world. But that's not what our Western society is like, right? So if in that context of those two ideals, those two energies at the same time. How did you decide for your own self, Brandon? Like what was the turning of the last page of the last chapter of your life that now you're in a chapter of giving her space, having patience, being that grounded man, that calm man that you want to be, right? Recognizing and owning your shit from the past, being in a group of men, which, by the way, guys, if you want to be in our group, I'll talk about that at the end, right? It's free to be in our private Facebook group. I'll talk about that at the end of the show if you're not in there already. So Brandon, what helped you turn the page into the current chapter that you're in right now as a man?
Unconditional love. And recognizing that that's something that I'm not capable of without a little bit of help. And without having that love, that unconditional love, comes in fear. Because we're loved, and I'm not just talking in a spiritual way, I'm talking where love and fear cannot coexist in the same habitat. So I was becoming fearful, and when I really got down to the heart of the matter, it was lack of love. Unconditional love. It's a very the way that I was loving, and it was always conditional. It was on my terms, and I'm still finding it. I find it every day in some way or another. Got tired of feeling fearful and placing my value in validation of other people, whether it be my wife or boss or whatever. And that's pretty much it. Was the fear, recognizing the fear, and recognizing that I needed to start putting myself in other people's shoes and having grace for them, and stop looking at everything as my way, or I'm 100% right, or I need get my eyes off myself. And that was the main thing. That it's a big long story, but that pretty much sums it up of where I was, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, I love that, Brandon. That we haven't said that on the show, that you can't hold hate or contempt in your heart and love at the same time, right? You can't be selfish and have love for others in your heart at the same time. That's so cool. So Cynthia, I'd love for you to give Brandon some honoring and some feedback. And Brandon, while Cynthia is chatting with you, I'd like for you to maybe think of what's a roadblock or what's a perceived next step that I want to take, and what's a question that you want to put into this space here. So yeah, Cynthia, go for it, please. How did you feel when Brandon was sharing there?
Deeply humbled, Brandon. Everything that you called out about, wanting to control like the situation or feeling like it had to be your way. I was watching it in my own self, and like what you called out was like such the humanness in all of us. And I love how you're modeling the owning of that, and then the moving forward into a more spiritual, reinvented part of yourself. And your story really touches on me, and the things I've responded to in relationship when I feel like someone promised me a certain thing and then it felt like they took away the promise, and then how I reacted to that, like kind of in a little girl mode, or the stories you carry, like, this always happens, that wonderful always. And you've taken that, it feels like, and really molded it into this like superpower of how to truly love. And I know none of this is perfect. And yet, thank you so much for dancing with the shadow in this way. It really is such a beacon of light for everyone.
Yeah, so cool. And so Brandon, if you have a question on your mind, otherwise I'll put you on pause. And I have a spot from No More Mr. Nice Guy that talks about fear. And then also, Brandon, Andy in the chat asked, what were you fearful of? What were you fearful of, Brandon?
That's a good question. And For me, it's so deep. What was I fearful of? I recognize that, and I still do it. I'm still I'm a work in progress. And so I recognize that. And I'm actually really glad today because I'm dealing with some stuff today and I'm being challenged today. And that fear is starting to creep in a little bit. So what am I fearful of? I feel that I control things or try to control things when I notice I'm fearful. So I guess I'm fearful of things that are out of my control. So, which is everything except for myself. So I'm fearful of losing. I'm fearful of losing my family. I'm fearful that that's probably the biggest thing, the family unit. Where, yeah, I mean, without going into the other side of that, that's probably the biggest thing. Fearful to be alone. I mean, I've read a lot in the comments, and for a long time, Jeff, before I joined the group, I thought for a year I was the only man that dealt with this. And to watch so many, the fear of isolation, of being alone, of dealing with this, of never being able to overcome. Or I had a vision of the guy I wanted to be, but I think I've come to a realization I already am that guy. I just got to stop and give things up every day, give that fear back and pick up love and understanding. And that's a daily thing. Even today, it was hard. I was trying to stay grounded, but it's such a process.
Yeah. I love you honoring that process. So that even with the spiritual underpinning, it's the process, the daily process, right? So would you say that, and you said this earlier, that being a part of a group of men, which every book that we recommend on here talks about this, right, Brandon? Being a group of men is like a huge grounding piece for you. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
My own personal belief, and so it's just my opinion. I was not a person 2 years ago that was able to have relationships. When I really wanted to be the ability to have relationships. So what I didn't have was relationship even with other men. Okay. And it was a large part in fear. I think it is so essential to lock arms with other men. I think is important to me, is water, is eating. I mean, it is that important. I believe that we were created for relationship. Now, I believe that, when man was created, he was created in the image of God because God wanted relationship. Then Eve was created for Adam because of relationship. So where I'm going with that is, for me, the importance of being a vulnerable, open relationship with other men and listening. And it is such a gift to be able to have Cynthia on here, kind of like the other side. I really log on. Sometimes I can't on because of work, but I go on later. And it's such good insight to be able to hear this. But it is so important for that relationship. And I've really realized how important those relationships are in my life. And I was taking a lot of stuff to my wife because I didn't have any men. Yeah. And that kind of energy and what I was feeding and the stuff that is not really, she didn't want to hear that. She didn't want, there was a lot of things that I was putting off onto her that I needed to go to other men and have a guy tell me, hey, put your ring on and stop acting like a baby, basically, in a very loving way. Or Savin calling me out, say, what are you posting that stuff on Facebook, dude? You're better than that. Well, I was really, that's a call up. And so it is so important to me. I'm sorry to even go off on it, but it's so huge. It's so important to be interactive with other men. I searched a long time for groups like this, and I went a lot of places, and just the openness that you find, what the path that leads us here is, you're so broken. And that's really when we get to the carnal man to the true man. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's a beautiful thing to have broken men together, that we can build each other up. And it just seems like to me, a lot of this stuff that we're discussing here and in this group was not taught to us by our fathers, by our grandfathers. Yeah. But I don't look down on them, because I really believe, and even with conversations with my father, they don't know. Right. They didn't know this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't have other men like this. The culture of the time, you know, they didn't think they could reach out, or they had to just keep everything inside. My grandfather was like fucking tortured inside. You know, I could tell that through a lot of his relationship, and I could tell that story another time. But yeah, that's phenomenal. Brandon, I'm going to press pause for now. And, you know, stay on our show. We're on for about another 30 minutes if you can too. I want to share right now, Brandon, thank you so much, man. That dovetails right into this quote, this passage from No More Mr. Nice Guy that we've talked about this week that I want to share. And also, Brandon, what you said about being in a relationship with other men, it's like the Spartan shield that's next to you, right? Like we make a phalanx that's stronger than any one of us could be as an individual. And if we fall, we're there to reach down and have a hand to pick each other up. Or, you know, if you need to lean on the man next to you, we're here for each other. And sometimes we're going to have our face in the mud, and we're the one that needs the help up. And that's what I needed in 2015, Brandon. That's when I found, you know, the local men's group of Steve Horseman in 2015, when my fucking face was in the mud. And so I've been there. Thank you so much. So let me share this quote from No More Mr. Nice Guy, this passage. It talks just about this, the fear. Nice guys do the opposite of what works. Living in fear and approaching adult situations with survival mechanisms that were formed when we were naive and powerless in childhood. Okay, so if we approach fear and approaching adult situations as if what we learned in childhood, naive and powerless, it's not going to work. So this causes nice guys are insured of having very little success in creating anything that resembles stability in their lives. This is a downward spiral. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn mature ways to handle this. We're here to learn the 3 forms of confidence: behavioral, emotional, and spiritual, that we talk about: the why, the what, and the how. And that's why we ground ourselves in that work and those tools. Dr. Robert Glover goes on to say, there is a solution to helplessness and vulnerabilities nice guys feel. Reclaiming personal power includes, by the way, this is in chapter 5, Reclaim Your Personal Power, of No More Mr. Nice Guy. Reclaiming personal power includes surrendering, which I'll talk about in a second, dwelling in reality, which means acknowledging the reality of the situation, expressing feelings, especially to other men that you can trust, facing fears, developing integrity, and setting boundaries. So boundaries are that shield in the world as well, so we can understand, you know, where our nuts lie, where our values lie. Ironically, the most important aspect of reclaiming personal power and getting what one wants in life and love is surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up. It means letting go of what one can't change and changing what one can. Brandon, that's exactly what you said, right, bud? Means letting go of what one can't change and changing what one can. Letting go doesn't mean not caring or not trying. Letting go means letting be. It's like opening up a tightly clenched fist and releasing the tension stored inside. At first, the fingers will want to return to their former clenched position. The hand almost has to be retrained to open up and relax. So it is with learning how to surrender and let go. How to surrender and let go. Phenomenal. Cynthia, I want to bounce back to you and give us some feedback on what happens in a woman's body and in a woman's psyche, and what happens with the energy between her and the man in a relationship when a man surrenders to what he cannot control and he fucking grabs the reins of his life and starts to learn this work. Either he's here with Good Guys to Great Men, or he's reading a book like No More Mr. Nice Guy, or he gets one-on-one coaching to provide himself a way to move forward the fastest, right? Or he's in a group like our Great Men Move Mountains private Facebook group. What is it like when a man lets go of the reins of the things he can't control, right? And grabs the reins of his own life and starts to move forward on his own adventure? What happens in that energy between? Because guys ask, well, if I just focus on myself, will that affect her? How will she ever see what I'm doing? How can I ever influence things, right? If I focus on my own passions, my own adventure, my own battle, what happens in that space between with a woman when a man does that, please?
Well, yeah, I can even tell you what happens to me in this space, in the space between the gentlemen here, like when you all are in that place of surrender and moving forward with spear and shield, my whole being relaxes, because you are if in a woman's psyche she's trying to like spin many plates at once and gets kind of wound up in the storm of that, and that she should be in control of this and on this and should have done that, your neurons, your cells doing that is a clue and a cue that it doesn't have to be this way, that you can be safe in a surrendered place. And I think for you all to know as gentlemen that you have that kind of power to influence a woman's, very being, just with how you're holding your body is profound. I think women are just very, very, very tuned in, are made to be very tuned in to you, and is always kind of looking to you to see, feel the tone. And it's not that she doesn't have to do that herself, but you do have that power. And I will also say that, in times of strife, when a woman in your life is really kind of pushing against you, and, you're trying to invite her in, and it's like she's wanting separation, she's wanting space, she's, again, like kind of using that tension to form a boundary for herself, to give her a sense of solidity. Like, I can push against this and I feel myself. So when you relax that and you drop the rope between you, and then with love and grace are moving forward in your life, she has nothing to pull against. And automatically it's going to shift something in her body, because she's either going to take a step forward, or, your lives might separate. But more often than not, when you're not giving something to push against, you're inviting something far, far different.
I love that. You're not fighting anymore. You've dropped that rope and you've turned the magnet so they're no longer facing negative to negative. You've turned your magnet to positive, and that can't help but influence the space in between. Thank you, Cynthia. So I want to jump forward, and for the sake of time, I'm going to pause on this video from the School of Life. I'm going to put this link into the chat right now as a bonus to the men that are here. This is a bit of homework for you guys. And it talks about the different types of love, which is something that you can look up yourself, and to consider the difference between eros, that egoic love, and philia and agape, that sort of spiritual love, that brotherly love. The difference between eros and philia and agape is something as homework that y'all can look up, the three forms of Greek love. I want to move forward into the like stories of old, the Stoic philosophy around what to do. This chapter in the video, it's 2 minutes long. It's phenomenal. It's about what to do. So Cynthia was talking about, this is how we can lead ourselves as a man and change the energy. And it's like, that sounds great, Jeff, but how the fuck do I do that? What does that look like? What does that sound like? And we've got some Stoic philosophy from Mark Aurelius, Epictetus, and a couple of others on this video here I'm going to show in a second. And I want to honor the men that have come in. If I miss your name, I apologize. I see that Pat came in, and Jason, and of course, we've got all of our amazing men here as well, Harry, Hussein, and Brett. Brandon, thanks for coming on, and Andy, John, and Kent, and Chris came in as well, right? And Patrick, of course, is here from New Zealand, and Andy's from Spain. Love it all around the world every day. So cool. And Rob is here, and Randy's here. Phenomenal. So here we go. I'm going to show 2 minutes from this clip, and I'll post the link into our chat as well after I'm done with the clip. But focus on the quotes here, and what do I do? What do I do now as a man to be in the energy that I want to be? Here we go right now.
Gladiators, I salute you.
What to do when you are put in chains. How to act virtuously when your freedom is restricted or injustice is done towards you. Remember first that the best way of avenging thyself is not to become like the wrongdoer. Others may decide the circumstances we find ourselves in, but our mind remains our own. As long as we have our will, we can be free.
Ancestors, I honor you, and will try to live with the dignity you have taught me.
Show those qualities then which are altogether in thy power: sincerity, gravity, endurance of labor, aversion to pleasure, contentment with thy portion and with few things, benevolence, frankness, no love of superfluity, freedom from trifling, magnanimity. Dost thou not see how many qualities thou art immediately able to exhibit, in which there is no excuse of natural incapacity and unfitness? Free yourself from the pain of insults, and see how he who aimed to harm you had only done harm to himself. Free yourself from the despair of a hopeless situation, and see that your fate has not been as decided as you had feared. Free yourself from all your imagined constraints, and see how every trial becomes an opportunity for virtue and purposeful action.
Today I saw a slave become more powerful than the Emperor of Rome.
And so, knowing the freedom that is within you at all times, you can be put in chains and respond, "What are you talking about? Me in chains? You may fellow my leg, but my will, not even Zeus himself can overpower."
My will, not even Zeus himself can overpower. So cool. This is like we talked about this week of wanting approval or wanting affirmation. And if we're sourcing that ourselves, right? Or if we're being needy about that from someone else, or if when we get it from someone else, we're detached in the outcome. We're self-sourcing, we're not needy. And if we do get approval, if someone judges us, either good or bad, we're detached from that. And if someone affirms us or supports us, we love when that happens, but we're not needy about that happening. We're not going to punish someone else for that happening. And I think Brandon would agree that what he was insinuating earlier when he took his ring off at different parts of his relationship. And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'd love for you to jump in. When you said you took your ring off previously, was that kind of a punishment earlier? Is that what that was prior in your relationship, was kind of a punishment?
Yeah. It's pretty selfish, pretty childlike, I feel like now.
Yeah.
I'm going to show her, you know?
Yeah, I understand. So Brandon, do you have a question for us? You have a question for Cynthia about, so what's the next step here? Or maybe some perspective from a woman's point of view. Yeah, please go for it.
Yeah. I just would like to hear from a woman's perspective. I mean, I really like the push and pull. That really made a lot of sense. Maybe just my question would be more specifically, what is it really? Can you just maybe elaborate on what that looks like? What are some responses when she's upset? Just maybe, I don't know, maybe some scenarios on what it more specifically looks like. Because us guys are just kind of, at least I am.
Oh, sure. That makes total sense. That push-pull, I think anytime a woman in your life is kind of doing the whatever energy, or you just go do your own thing, whatever, like it doesn't care what you do, doesn't affect me. So you're asking me to like sit down and communicate with you. Well, I'm busy, or I have this going on. Anything where she's acting like you are not her top priority, or the relationship is not her top priority, is a clue. Because for a women relationship, you are always her number one priority. So anytime she's acting out of accordance to that, it's a little bit of a push, or her trying to feel control in other areas of her life. And I will say I have done this profusely in areas of my work, where I've kind of pushed away a partner because, work was really important. And yeah, sure it is. But it was also indicative of a relationship where I was not feeling that we were connected and I wasn't feeling his lead. And so I was trying to create my own container and feel safe.
So Brandon, go ahead and ask another specific question, right? Go ahead, go for it.
Okay. What does, and I know that this was, I think, talked about before, because I think I've seen it, but when do you, and maybe I'm just going to say it, how long do you give it? How long do you know, if it's unconditional, I guess it would be forever, but how long does a guy, give it?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Brandon, I happen to feel that I think love, romantic love, there's always some condition. I think we always have to want something. We've chosen to be with this person, so there's, some things that we want to create with them. So may I ask you, how long have you been on your journey currently, where you've been working with men and on yourself?
I've only been on working with men. I was going to therapy, which is, to me, is just like totally two different. Well, I get something out of both of them, but I was in therapy, but I've only been working with men going on about 3 months.
Yeah. Jeff said something very powerful yesterday where he said, in these like really huge evolutionary parts of our lives, we do kind of look at it in like 3-month chunks. So it's kind of like, okay, I've achieved this first 3 months. And then what do I want to see 6 months from now that to me would feel like progress in moving forward? And then 9 months and then 12 months. And please know I am not someone who thinks anyone should be in a relationship that's not working forever. And I do believe in the power of you getting very, very clear on what you're wanting and the vision you have for your relationship. And when you're able to hold that with such certainty, because it's the health and wellness for both of you, with a element of detachment, like, honey, you can be here in this with us, or my vision, it will be, I'll go with someone else. When it's that kind of certainty in yourself, that's the time to start having some, deeper conversations, because you know what you want, and it is with kind of loving an attachment.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. So Cynthia, I fully agree. Let me add to that, Brandon. So that question of how long should I wait? It's first of all, that's impossible for us to answer. And my answer is, generally about 6 to 12 months is a phenomenal amount of time to do this work. Okay. So for me, I reattracted my ex at about the 6-month mark, and then again at about the 12-month mark. And that's a story I've shared on the show, and I'll pause on my own personal story. And with every single man that we work with, I work with them for 4 months. There's a huge evolution that happens in the first 3 months. And I'll share this. I've showed this on the show. There's 3 stages of my coaching, and this is mine. I developed this. This is just what I've seen over working with hundreds of men, is stop fucking up, grow yourself and grow a healthy space between the two of you, and grow your own self as a man, right? And then you can start asking for what you want. And the asking starts to happen about the 3rd or 4th month, generally, right? Depends on what's going on, obviously. So, and you notice that stop fucking up overlaps grow. So you got to stop and then start growing at the same time. And grow overlaps ask. Okay, so you can still be growing and it overlaps ask, but you can't still be fucking up and try to ask for what you want. Like, those do not overlap. Okay, so that's a big delineation. So let me add to that. I may actually show this clip if we have time. I'm going to bounce here in a second. So let me add to that. So there's the spiritual undercurrent. Okay, this is the unconditional love. And this is the, are we being good partners in a relationship, as Cynthia was talking about, right? So that's what Cynthia was talking about, that we have expectations in relationship with someone, right? Like if I abuse you and kick your dog and steal your TV, even though I'm your brother, you're not going to invite me over to your house anymore. You know, like, you're going to love me unconditionally because I'm your brother, but you're not going to want me to be around you any longer. Okay. So that's where we can love someone. And for me, honestly, Brandon, my ex, I turned her away when she came back, and I've shared that on the show, because she wasn't doing her growth, and she blamed me for literally everything in the relationship. And she was completely incapable of communicating about relationship. So I decided not to get back with her. She was upset about that. That's a story for another time. Okay. But she still has a place in my heart. She's still the mother of my son. We were together for 12, 13 years about in there. Right. I mean, like, it's not that I'm writing her off as a piece of shit. You know, it's like, she has her pains too from childhood. She was treated a certain way in childhood. So I still have love for her in this agape kind of way. That's why I introduced this week, this agape love for everyone with compassion. But I certainly do not have sexual passion, and I do not want to be with her in relationship any longer. Okay. And philia is this, in the video, talks about how in marriage, if we think that eros is going to last forever, guess what? We're in for a shock, because it doesn't, not to the same intensity. Right. And so we can love someone, but still have conditions. Well, that's a bad word, not conditions. We can still have boundaries and values for ourselves. Okay. And so I'll share really fast, and I'm sharing a lot here, Brandon, and I want to get your feedback in a second. The difference between what are our values, like Hold On to Your Nuts, the book, what are our values, what are our boundaries, and what are conditions that we try to put on other people, which are not good. So values are how we act in the world, the kind of man that I am no matter what, okay? Boundaries are, if someone crosses a line, then I'm going to speak up. That's boundaries. And you generally let people know what your boundaries are ahead of time, or if it happens, they cross the line, you speak up and you're honest, and you're caring and compassionate about it, but you're going to speak up about your boundaries. Conditions are not okay. Conditions are like, you will cook me dinner at 5 o'clock every day, otherwise I'm going to threaten to divorce you. Or you will put out and give me sex, otherwise I'm going to be, a raging asshole. Or you will always, like nice guy, you will always be available to me, otherwise I'm going to feel butthurt because my covert contract is not being fulfilled. And you can't read my mind and I can't read your mind, right? Or I stay away from you because I work 80 hours a week, and I'm hoping that gives me love when I come back, and I want immediate availability of like sex and connection and love, even though I haven't been available. And so that's another form of nice guy covert contract that we talked about this week as well. So that was a bunch. It's really the underpinning of spiritual versus ego. Okay. Then it's the types of love. It's the stages of one-on-one coaching. This is why I do one-on-one coaching, to fucking walk guys through this. Right. Okay. And then really the answer is like 6 to 12 months is what most guys invest into, like full on reading books, being in groups, kicking ass, being in a local men's group. And Brandon, I've been in my local men's group now for 5 years, and I will continue to forever go to my local men's group. So it doesn't end, right? But as far as how much time I should give it, I think a year is a great amount of time. And I could talk more about that, but we're running out of time today on our show. So Brandon, how does that hit you? If you unmute yourself and just give us some feedback, how does all that hit you?
This is really good. It's really good. It clears a lot of things up. The push and pull and that sort of thing. I feel like I could do a little bit better. And then I really like your graph. That's really, if I'm really being honest with myself, I don't think that I think I'll go really good 3 weeks or a good 4 weeks, but there's always, if I look at myself in the mirror, it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And she's communicated that to me, and it might just be like a hinting underlying comment, but nevertheless it's still being made. So I can see where you can't ask, and if the shit hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then, another thing too with the boundary too is, and I'd like to get, it might be so, but the expectation that I have on people, and that's sometimes is unrealistic, but I like throwing it in there because what I'm finding is, like you said, the boundaries are for me. Mm-hmm. You start going around to other adults and telling them boundaries, and I'm finding it doesn't work out too well. Like that's a pretty makes them feel pretty caged in. But if I communicate to them in a loving way, like this is my expectation for it, maybe I'm off, and I'll just tell them, hey, maybe tell my wife, maybe I'm off on this, but this is my expectation for the evening would be that we spend some time together. And maybe I'm off, but that's what I kind of gathered from our conversation. That way I'm kind of getting out what I'm kind of expecting out of it and what my needs, or I'll use need. My need for the evening is, I really need to spend some time together. In not a needy way, but just telling her. That's why I don't really like using the word need. It's more like an expectation for me. Like, and if I'm off, and then she can give feedback.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to say one thing and then we'll pause for today. We can certainly pick this up on Monday, Brandon. This is a great cliffhanger. So it's something that you want, and you can have a vision for what you want. Okay. So it's not a condition like you have to give me attention tonight, right? It's not a boundary because she can choose what she wants to do. It's not that she violated something. It's a vision for what you want. And Cynthia talks about this extensively. This is some of her superpowers, our vision. She engages the men on the forum and with her personal wraparound coaching and vision as well. So cool. So Brandon, that's how I would say. I'm gonna press pause on you, buddy. And so I just fucking like fire hose a lot of stuff, and I'd call that having binoculars on my face. Like showing what's down the road, like these binoculars, right? But if you take the binoculars off your face and say like, okay, Jeff, that was a lot, but let me take the binoculars down and look down and take the one next step, right? The one next step is, what's my morning routine today? How am I connecting with a man on the forum, let's say? How am I reaching my hand down to a man that's in the mud today? How am I hugging my children today? Am I kicking ass in my career today? Right, that's the building blocks of an amazing life. So cool. So Cynthia, we're at 12 o'clock here, and I'd love to honor our men and wrap up our show. And I've got a lot more for Monday, guys. This is a pretty strong cliffhanger. We've got the more from the Stoicism video as well that I didn't have time to share today. So we'll pick that up on Monday. And I do also want to say that we are going to focus on the book Hold On to Your Nuts next week. I grabbed a picture of it here. So we're going to talk about the book Hold On to Your Nuts and how do I determine my values? How do I determine my boundaries? That's what this book by Wayne Levine is all about. The Hold On, and nuts is an acronym for non-negotiable, unalterable terms, right? Which is just like a fancy fun way because he wanted to put a squirrel in the front of what are my values? What are my boundaries? What are my visions? And I can't have conditions on other people. Right? Expectations are premeditated resentments, right? That's from AA that I heard from someone else. Expectations are premeditated resentments. So we'll focus on that next week. Cynthia, let's honor our men, and then we'll wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much, and thanks, Brandon.
Yes, Brandon, thank you so much. And just wanted to say in the chat, John said, Brandon, your self-awareness is inspiring. Rob said, thanks for sharing. Chris was saying thank you for that. Kent was saying thank you. So I just want to echo the gratitude. And I'm always practicing vision. If there's something you want to listen to and practice your vision for a relationship, Jeff's in my 10-day free program, Solve the Fear of Divorce. On day 9, there's an evening reflection on how to practice creating new vision off your radar screen. So wanted to offer that and say thank you all for your sight, for what you see and experience and what you share. It is inspiring and it lights me up. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Fantastic. I just decided I'm going to share 2 more minutes of that Stoicism clip. Cynthia just talked about our free program. I'll tell you about that here in a second too. Fantastic. So this has been the C-Note Show, brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains and greatmenmovemountains.com. If you're not yet in our private Facebook group, you have to be invited. So go to greatmenmovemountains.com/Facebook and punch in your information, and we will personally invite you in. Or a man that's already in there can invite you as well, and then we have to give you the thumbs up to come in. So it's a private group. It is free, but go to greatmenmovemountains.com/Facebook and punch in your info for that. Otherwise, the free program that Cynthia just talked about, the 10 days to solving the number one cause of divorce, 10 days to solving the number one cause of divorce, go to greatmenmovemountains.com/free program and punch in your info, and you get instant access to that. No BS, no strings attached, right? We just give that as our heart. We have other free stuff out there as well, just like our free Facebook group for men. And that's our heart, right? I believe in heart and business, and the free stuff is our heart. We just offer that to you. Awesome. So these 2 more minutes are how do we bring other amazing men into our life? What do we do when we feel alone or lonely? We're going to talk about that right now in this video.
That a man relies on his own reason and fortitude for his happiness doesn't mean that he is to be alone, that he needs not surround himself with companions and friends. In the same way as there exists in man a distaste for solitude and a craving for society, so too with this there is something inherent in it that stimulates us into seeking friendships. Great pleasure is to be found not only in keeping up an old and established friendship, but also in beginning and building up a new one. True friendship is to trust someone as you trust yourself. This takes a bit of judgment, for while it is easy to find a friend in a time of prosperity, not so easy is it to find one in the face of adversity. And let this guide your own actions as well. Do not seek and maintain friendships for their utility. Do not hold a friend because he is temporarily useful. Remember that if you want a true friend, then you must be one yourself. Only then can you surround yourself with kindred spirits and delight in their virtues. Think about, for instance, the activity of one and the modesty of another, and the liberality of a third, and some other good quality of a fourth. Nothing delights so much as the examples of the virtues when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us.
Being around other men that are doing this work is so important. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great weekend. Thank you again, Cynthia.
Bye.
I'ma tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she